So that was the US men. Let's take a look at the US women and what's been going on in Olympic action, where it will be Sweden against Canada, battling it out for the gold medal after the US were beaten 1-0 in the semi-finals by their neighbours Canada. A second-half penalty from Jessie Fleming, enough for the Canadians to stun the reigning world champions, who had not been beaten by Canada for over 20 years. We're now delighted to be joined by Ali Krieger, two-times World Cup winner. Ali, let's just talk about what happened today. What went wrong for the US?
I think, obviously it's such a disappointing game for the US, and I think the tournament has been tough. But today, obviously losing to our neighbors is not a great feeling, and I know the players, feel the same. I just think it was a bit disconnected at times. I obviously think we did have, a handful of chances that unfortunately just didn't go into the back of the net, and then the game would have obviously been a lot different. But Canada is, now they don't fear us, and I think they had a mindset coming into this game that they're going to give everything, and they want to make the final, and they want to win gold, and they battled until the very end, and you could see that in their mentality. And so I feel, it's unfortunate, and it's not what we wanted. But yeah, the disconnect, I think, between the lines is where Canada actually succeeded in those spaces.
Yeah, and obviously all credit to Canada, but there was a big controversial moment that led to the goal with the penalty in the 72nd minute on the field. It wasn't called at first, it had to go to VAR when Tierna Davidson was adjudged to have fouled Deanne Rose. What did you make of the decision?
Obviously when it comes down to VAR, I guess you have to trust that they're making that right decision, and they're looking at it, with on the microscope, so to speak. And so obviously she didn't mean to, no one means to kick somebody from behind like that on purpose at all. I think it's just wanted to obviously get the ball. And I realized that, in that moment, unfortunately, it just, she didn't in that moment. I think it was a little close on the line. I would say defend Tierna, that it could have been outside the box. But obviously with VAR and everything implemented now, you can't get away with much. So it definitely wasn't purposeful, and just unfortunate. And, you just have to move on and roll your sleeves up again and get after it.
It does feel as though it's an unfortunate call, Chuck, a bit of a freak accident.
Unfortunate, but it's the right call. I think to Ali's point, the only question here was it inside the box or out? I thought it was in. It was very close. We could call it marginal if you like, but in terms of the foul of Davidson and Rose, I don't think there's any controversy around it. Once Rose gets herself in a position, whether Davidson sees her coming or not, whether she intends to kick her or not, she does. Rose gets herself in a better position, and though she's yet to touch the ball, she draws the contact from Davidson. And 100 times out of 100, that's a penalty. And listen, it may feel cruel given the balance of the game, given how close it was to the edge of the box. You could try to twist this every which way you like. The fact of the matter is that play, standing on its own, is a penalty every single time. And the only surprising thing is that the referee didn't give it first time of asking, that it had to be referred to VAR.
Ali, as well, Vlatko Andonovski's come under fire and come under criticism for his tactics in this. Megan Rapinoe defended the coach today, saying that the blame should be on the players and not on the coach. What have you made of the criticism of him?
I think it's, it's not who he is. I know that Vlatko is so diligent in everything that he does. He's so knowledgeable about the game and the way he has coached the team. His record speaks for itself. And then coming into the tournament, I do think the players played a little bit nervous, a little bit fearful, just made uncharacteristic mistakes. And I do think and can agree with Pino that, some of the players needed to kind of step up more and clean up those mistakes and tidy up the details and fight a little bit more. I think the mentality was shaken up a little bit. And so I was surprised at, some of the games and watching, I didn't feel like this was who we were. And you can tell now that teams don't fear us and don't fear that about our game winning mentality. And so I think that, this is the first time that teams around the world do feel that we are beatable. And that doesn't really necessarily rely on him. I think that, you have to have consistency in your play. You have to have consistency in the mentality that you bring to every game, because that's the controllable. You can never control the opponent and the formation and the transitional moments and, tactical decisions that other opponents make, but you can control your mentality. And I think we needed to step it up a little bit more in order to get into the final. We can't just show up to tournaments anymore and just expect to be there and win championships. And so I do agree with Pino. I want to back the coaching staff as much as possible, and I do think the players could have had given a little bit more each game, like we've seen leading up to this tournament.
Because it's been strange that you talk about uncharacteristic. It's been strange to see such a low tally of goals from the US team here, because we're used to seeing goals wherever they go usually. Has that been strange even for you to see?
Yes, it has. But I also think that is, a sign of the inconsistency possibly within the lineup that, is something that I've, struggled to understand, because usually in a tournament, you make a few changes here and there. And of course, against New Zealand, you can play the, second team, which is fine and dandy. But, moving into these stages, I was pretty surprised at seeing the inconsistency, because you do need to build those relationships with the players around you, especially to the right and left of you, in the front and behind. I think it's really important. And so I think that was something that I was a bit surprised and maybe was a cause of the disconnect between the lines.
Julie Fody was speaking on Sports Centre earlier today, Ali, talking about the average age being 31 here, and obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing. But do you think it is time for a changing of the guard and maybe some younger players to come through going forward?
I can agree and disagree. Look, I feel like, it's great to give the younger players experience, but you can also do that in games and friendlies in the years that you don't have big tournaments. I think we want to win now, not necessarily in 3 years. Of course, you want to win 3 years from now as well, but that's when players are then developed into those positions. So for me, I think that, yes, it's still the core of the group who won, the World Cup, and then a few changes here and there and a few adjustments. But I do think that I see both sides. But you do want to have that consistency and that experience at the highest level in these biggest, tournaments on the highest stage. And so that is something that I think we can go back and take a hard look at, because you do want to win in the moment, not necessarily prepare for 3 years from now.
Yeah, and obviously these things can be wake-up calls. By national team standards, though, will this be considered a failure for all those women in that team? You know how their mentality is, not to make it to the final.
Yes, I view it as a failure. Obviously, our expectations are so high and our standards are so high playing on the U.S. women's national team that, if we do not win, then it's considered a failure for us. But that's because we hold those standards at the highest level. And so our expectation is to win everything. We want to win every game, every friendly, every tournament, every tackle, every interception. Anything and everything we want to win all the time. We obviously know that at the end of the day, football's, the way it is. It's a funny game and any team can win on any given day. So that's also, important to state. And look, like I said before, I feel like now it's other teams around the world are really, seeing that they can compete and that they can beat us and that they are no longer feared and have also this winning mindset that they can come out and really challenge us. And so that's what I think we saw this tournament. And we need to keep getting better. We need to keep grinding, getting fitter, faster, stronger. We need to adapt and grow continuously every year because teams are catching up.
Onwards and upwards. Hey, Ali, it's been great to have your honesty and your insight. And yeah, hopefully things will get better going forward. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kay.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.